Hello dear friends of the folded sheet, I'm Tevin from Tevin's Origami Instructions, and today I'll show you how to read origami diagrams.
To be honest, origami diagrams can be really confusing and a bit scary even. That's exactly the reason why I started making origami video tutorials. For me, to make it easier to remember how to do my most favorite models. And of course, because you guys enjoyed them so much and apparently they were useful to you. But where did they come from and why do I think it's useful to use them? To begin with, where do they come from? You just need to know one name basically, and that is Akira Yoshizawa Sensei. He is the grandmaster of origami. He developed new folding styles and new models when there were just a few dozen around in the beginning of the 20th century, not so long ago. And he's also the reason why we all know origami, because he invented written diagrams that helped spread the art around the whole globe and not just person to person. You could print origami books and share them and copy them much more easily. And that is also the reason why I think you should learn how to read origami diagrams. Origami diagrams use lines and arrows, often along with written explanations to explain the folding process. The folding is split up into several steps, and in the following you will learn how to read those symbols. Right now you can see origami diagrams that I drew of the butterfly model by Akira Yoshizawa. Some general tips concerning origami diagrams. In this video, the paper will have a white and a colored side, gray to be exact. Some diagrams won't have two colors. Don't get confused by that. Origami diagrams often contain mistakes, so stick more to what seems logical and do not follow them religiously. And there are several styles of diagrams. They are usually explained in the beginning of an origami book, so make sure that you look there before you get confused by something that's different from what you're used to. So let's get started with the real stuff. First of all, lines. The edges of the paper are indicated by straight and thick lines. Creases, that are folds you already made, they are usually indicated by thinner lines that do not touch the edges of the paper, and in color diagrams they are often a different color, mostly gray, as I also choose to do that. And X-ray lines, that are edges you couldn't see in reality, and they are indicated by a dotted line. Let's see this all in context in an example. This sheet of paper, for example, would show as a simple square in a diagram. Nothing special, the edges are a little thick, and that's it. Now if we take the piece of paper and just fold one corner upside, it looks a little different. There is now a white and a colored area. In this case, it's gray. And you can also see that the outline is a little thicker than the edge in the inside that we just created. If we now try to unfold the corner, because the paper is a little stiff, and flatten it, you will see that in reality we can't see the crease really well, but in the diagram it shows really nicely as a thin gray line. And for the X-ray lines, we just fold it again and turn it around, and you can see the dotted lines that indicate that the paper isn't cut off as you could think from this photo here, but in the diagram you can see it's just the flap folded behind the piece of paper. And the next important thing are folds. Folds are actually quite simple in origami. There are just two kinds: mountain folds and belly folds. And all other complicated techniques are just combination of the two. And valley folds are the folds where the crease forms a little valley and you fold the paper away from yourself, and those are indicated by dashed lines. And the opposite of those are mountain folds, where the paper shapes a little mountain, and those are either indicated by dash dot lines or by dash dot dot lines. That is both often used. I prefer dash dot lines, but that's, as I already mentioned, a matter of taste. Let's see an example to make clear what I mean. The diagram in the top right corner now indicates that I make a belly crease and thus folding the sheet in half. So simple as that, and just to make it more clear, I will do another belly fold in the other direction too. Now I unfold the sheet again and add diagonal mountain folds like indicated in this diagram right now. In this example it might be a little confusing because essentially you just turn the paper and make belly folds again. I tried to make it clear that I'm now folding away from myself. That is not how you usually would do it. You just would turn the sheet and make belly folds because belly folds are more precise usually. You can see how I struggle to fold neatly here. But in other contexts it really makes sense to have a mountain fold. I will show this later on, but now for demonstrational purposes I wanted to keep it simple, and you can clearly see that the creases in the diagonals go in another direction, and you can see the tension in the paper, but here mountain folds and the belly folds in between. So there's still one big part missing after the lines that represent where the folds should go and how the model looks. We also want to show where the paper is moving and how it should be moving, and that is what we use arrows for. In this video I will just cover the most commonly used arrows and go through them one by one. The first one is the fold arrow. It simply means that the paper moves from A to B. In this example here you can see 3 different kinds of designs that are often used for the fold arrow, and it means the paper will move from left to right. Here's an example of how you would use a fold arrow in a diagram. On the left hand side you see a diagonal dashed line, so we make a belly fold, and the paper needs to move from the bottom to the top, so we add a fold arrow to make that clear. And on the right hand side you can see the result of this fold. Notice how you can see both layers on the right hand side, even though in reality you just would see a triangle of paper. That is just to make it more clear what we mean with the result in a diagram, so don't be confused if diagrams make voluntary mistakes and let you see things you wouldn't see in reality. This is just to make it more easy to follow. The unfold arrow is just an undo for the fold arrow and is most commonly indicated by those 2 arrows. They are hollow, and if you would, for example, want to undo the diagonally folded sheet, you just would use this unfold arrow to indicate it and would end up with a square and a diagonal fold. The fold and unfold arrow just combines the 2, folding and unfolding, into one step, and those 3 arrows are commonly used for it. So to apply our old example again, we have the diagonal fold and we have a fold and unfold arrow on the left hand side, so the result on the right hand side is a diagonal crease. This is what the push or move arrow looks like, and as the name already hints, it indicates when you need to push the paper in a certain direction. The push arrow is usually used in more complex folds, and the most simple example I could think of is the squash fold. You can see one squash fold right now. So what we do is we move the paper from the left corner upwards and we move one layer to the right, so we basically flatten the loop that is there. And this is also a good example of when you can actually use belly folds and mountain folds in a meaningful way, because the diagonal fold is a mountain fold and the vertical fold is a belly fold. Let's watch a live demonstration of the maneuver. I move the paper as indicated by the fold arrow, and then I push as indicated by the push arrow. Pretty simple if you know what you need to do, but to to make it more clear, I will repeat the same maneuver on the back again. So this is again another squash fold, so I open the loop, I move the top layer from left to right as indicated by the move arrow, and push the paper down as indicated by the push arrow. So now we're done with the most important arrows. There's just two more symbols I want to show to you before I finish up this basic tutorial, and this is the turn over arrow, so you can either orient it from left to right or from top to bottom, and the rotation arrow, that's just a circle, and if it's clockwise you turn clockwise, and if it's counterclockwise you turn counterclockwise, and either it's in degrees or in fractions of a turn. So the top is 1/4 of a turn or 90 degrees to the right, and the other one is 120 degrees to the left or 1/3 of a turn. Okay, well done. If you stuck with me that long, you now know how to read origami diagrams basically. There are little more details you can and should maybe learn later on, and if you want to do that right now, please click on the left rectangle and continue watching my playlist. I include there instructions on how to understand more complicated folding sequences like a petal fold, and also there are many diagrams instructions, for example of the traditional origami crane. So you see me folding the model, and on the top right corner there's the diagram, so you can learn how to read the diagrams by seeing what the diagram means in the folding sequence, just as I showed you recently. And I also written down this in a blog post, or I should have by now, and so click on the right rectangle and read the blog post that explains everything in great detail again with nice images and everything. And if you want to see more like this, please subscribe to my channel, that helps me a lot, and leave me a comment. That is what I really appreciate the most, to get your feedback, to know that I'm not doing this just for myself. So see you next time, happy folding, and bye bye!